So there was a really nice red Mach 1 for sale in town recently, and it had pretty low mileage, like 54,000 or something like that, and they were asking around 20,000 for it, and I thought it was a nice car, but my brother called me and said, hey, I want to go buy that Mach 1, let's go look at it, and he said, would you like to drive out here and come see it with me and, you know, potentially give me a ride back or something? And I said, yeah, I'm always up for that. It sounds fun. So I had a couple errands to run. I had to go visit my mother-in-law and get her something, drop something off to her real quick. And I thought, well, it was kind of hot still, so I decided I'd go and get an ice cream on the way. My brother was actually just about to get off work, so I had a little time to kill, and so I decided to go ahead and get that ice cream, and I was going to go park underneath an overpass in the area where we were going that I knew. And this is actually nearby where we work, so it was basically my same drive to work, only later in the day. I usually drive before the sun's up, and so this is all in the dark when I'm driving to work, but it's a beautiful view. I love driving out here. And as a matter of fact, right below where the car is, down in those houses right there, is where that red Mach 1 was. And here I've been driving past it all the time, and I didn't even know it. The guy moved here recently. That was a cool Challenger. It's always fun to see other muscle cars ripping around and having some fun. So this is the overpass where I decided to wait for my brother. He'd be coming right through here in his GT. And I even saw the Pizza Planet truck. So waited for my brother. Here he comes.
So you can't add that to your collection yet.
The blue one's yours. Right?
Yes.
So where'd you get the wheels?
Rather low clearance.
That's all right. It looks good.
I never have to worry about
Yeah, that's the opposite with a Jeep.
Videoing that.
Oh, I
Well, except for mine.
do. I do, but then, you know.
This is bad. So DA was the first revision. Every time Ford makes a revision, then the part number is the same, but the last two letters change. So the DA head was the first one that came out, and that was the one that was prone to having some of the cylinder, the head tip, right from the valve guide wear. So then they went to a DB head. And this one should have DB heads.
It's a beautiful car. And it's going to a good home.
Well, yeah,
That's
I don't
what
know because it's like one of many. It's like, you know, how much love is it going
Well,
to
they
get
have
when you've
them
got?
all.
Well, you know, some kid's going to put this under a carport, and it's going to get beat on the sun and stuff. If
Well, I
someone...
don't disagree with that. But
Any car you see this old, especially around here, all the paint's peeled off.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Or a very, very different color.
I
because
know,
it's
but there's
bleached.
love of a vehicle. And
Well, that's
when
why
it's
it's
one
not
of
real.
four, one of 1.5 million.
But it goes to a collection. See, my uncle
That's
had a
true.
70 Challenger
440 RT 6-pack.
That takes a while.
And when he sold it, it went to a collector up in Oregon, I think. And he felt good about that. It went up to be where it's
I don't
going to
disagree
take
with that.
back.
I'm just
Yeah,
thinking
see,
of the love.
here's his car.
I mean, you love that silver one more than anything.
And you know what?
These are all
Let me
the
tell you what.
production
When I sold my Red
numbers.
Mach once
This is the
to
video
some
that
kid
I
out here,
made on
Cried,
these.
didn't you?
he spun donuts to me.
And so
But you
04,
cried, didn't
And I felt really bad.
You
I
had
thought he's going to beat this thing
laser
up.
probably did.
red,
He
torch
probably
red,
did.
sorry,
Oh,
torch
probably.
red,
Yeah.
1259.
Well, it's one of those things where you work hard and you save for a long time.
So you could hear the guy's friend and us having a friendly argument that this car shouldn't be going to my brother because he already has a lot of nice cars and it won't be loved. And I was arguing that when you love these cars and it's in a collection with the other cars, then it would receive just the greatest amount of love. And, you know, maybe if one person had the car, then it's their only car and, you know, maybe they would have more love to give it. But in my opinion, this is going to a new edge enthusiast, probably among the top people in the country who love these cars. And so we were just kind of arguing back and forth, just a friendly argument. I was saying that I love all my children the same, and I just love having many of them. And, you know, it's the same thing with the cars. To me, I love them all for their own special reasons. His argument was just saying, you can't love this car because you have too many of them and stuff. And so I understand where he's coming from. And, you know, maybe one person could just love having this car and they just like baby it and enjoy it. But I also let him know that there's a lot of people who would get this car and not take care of it. And so at least he could be happy to know that it was going to a good home. And so it was just kind of an interesting argument. Usually when I tell people about the cars I have, then they say, oh, you're the person I want to have my car when I'm buying one. And they say, yeah, that's going to a great place. You're the perfect person for it. You know all about it. You're not going to hurt it. If it needs anything, you can fix it, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a funny take on it. Kind of interesting to hear him argue with us about it. So the plan was for my brother to drive the car home with the owner in the front seat, and they were going to do all the paperwork at my brother's house and he'd give him the money. And so I was following him home now because I was all the way out there, and then I would give my brother a ride back. Actually, we were probably going to take the Red Mach one back to get his GT just for fun.
Yeah, baby.
So like I said earlier, this Mach 1 was listed for a pretty decent price. Originally, he was asking $20,000 for the car, and it had decently low mileage, and it was pretty nice, but My brother was kind of going back and forth on whether he really wanted to buy it or not. On one hand, he really wanted a low mileage Mach 1, and he was willing to do it. He even got all the money out to buy the car. But upon further inspection, he kept finding things about the car that he didn't like, and he told the owner that he might want to think about it before he actually buys the car. And they had already exchanged money and everything, but it got to the point where my brother looked it over, parked next to his red Mach 1, and this one didn't really look much better. As a matter of fact, if you look at the top of the bumper on the back, it was actually starting to fade pink. And my 04 Mach 1 that was torch red was doing the same thing with 165,000 miles because it had seen a lot of the Vegas sun. And this car looked like it had actually been out in the sun a lot more than we were led to believe. Now, the guy who owned the car had always kept it nice and garaged, but the owners before him might not have. So as we continued to look over the car, we noticed things like the hood stripe was replaced on the top section, which would also lead us to believe that the hood stripe had seen a lot of sun and was peeling off, and the shaker had been repainted, and you could tell it was pretty obvious. These shakers are actually metal, and they're kind of a powder-coated black, kind of a matte color originally, and when they see a lot of sun, they start to turn white. They fade pretty ugly, and so it was pretty obvious that the shaker had been repainted, so you're starting to add up all the things that show that the car was probably not garaged its whole life, and for paying top dollar for something like this, it was kind of annoying. Those things bothered him a lot. It had a pretty good rock chip on the hood, which that's normal wear and tear. Any Mustang can have that even with a couple thousand miles on it. So that it wasn't like a really bad deal breaker on that, but still it was just adding to the reasons why he wasn't extremely happy with the car. Inside, the radio bezel by the shifter was all repainted like with a hand brush. It was clumpy and ugly. And my brother didn't care too much about that because he has a brand new interior upgrade package, radio bezel and shifter bezel, and he could have put that on the car. But still, it's just all these things started to make him feel like it wasn't that much nicer of a car than his. Now, of course, one of the great things about the car was it did have the DB casting cylinder heads with the 9-thread spark plug holes, and that's a very desirable thing for these Mach 1s. As we had looked at, because it's an 04 and all the 04s got that anyway. My blue Mach 1 has that as a late 03, and so being an 04, then that was pretty known that would have that, and we jumped under there and checked just to make sure and verify, and it did. But so that was nice, and he said, for the car being a low mileage car, the drivetrain seemed very solid. The AC did make a lot of whining noises, and so he's kind of worried that had been tampered with or recharged, or it might have been having some issues. Sometimes the AC makes noise like that, but it was pretty loud. So overall, he was just kind of like, this is a lot of money, and I was willing to pay it if the car is perfect, but it really has a lot of blemishes and problems that I'm not really happy about. And to me, the bumper and the shaker and all that stuff being kind of faded and stuff is what bothered me the most, because you can't have an original paint car anymore if you're going to fix those things, and that's one of the reasons you're paying so much money and you're not just buying one that's been repainted. So it was a very nice car, and it sold a few days later, and so no harm done, but it was just something that my brother thought he wanted and just ended up not doing. So my friend Zach came over with his 35th anniversary. Went to a meeting at the church, and my wife was already there with the GT, so I thought that was kind of funny because you pull up in one Mustang and you see one of your own Mustangs sitting there. Kind of cool to see, and they both look good together there. So speaking of the silver GT, we got home and it was time to give it a nice bath. The car was getting kind of dirty, gets rained on, sitting outside a lot and stuff, daily driving, so time to wash it and upkeep on it, make it look nice. and it gets a lot of brake dust on the front brakes especially. So the next morning, woke up early, got some ice water, and decided to go meet up with my friends, with my brother and Zach. We're going to take the Mustangs to a cool new spot, and then we're going to also go to a car meet, like a cars and coffee thing they're having this morning. So we thought, let's go for a nice cruise while it's nice in the morning, and then we can go drive around and go to that thing. And Zach would have to leave a little early after that, but it was still early enough that we could go get together and have fun and go on a cruise and stuff. So it was a beautiful morning, and I thought I'd like to take the Cobra out. Sometimes I work really long weeks, and I don't have time to drive the car in the meantime, so sometimes it's nice to just say, all right, I'm getting up tomorrow and I'm going to take the Cobra out, and we're going to have a good time and go drive around and enjoy the car. Sometimes you feel like you never get to drive it. Well, at least I do, at least. And so I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to take it out and enjoy, and go on to another busy week the next week.
burnout that led to donut.
Wow. And then they got going on there too. Jeez, all the way up that on ramp. Jeez. That would have been fun to be there and see what car was leaving those marks. That's pretty intense, pretty sweet, but nice little overpass, nice place to hang out, and a beautiful morning, nice temperature, nice cars, everything shiny and nice, and just enjoying being together and having a little bit of a morning cruise and getting out and enjoying the Mustangs that sit in the garage a lot. So that was really nice to do that, and they just look fantastic. It's always fun to get out and do this in the mornings, and so it's one of our favorite things to do, just get up and enjoy the morning while it's nice. And so we're gonna head over to the car show now. We were early enough that we got the front spot here, and this place was really nice. They coned off the entire parking lot for the event, which makes it nice for other people to come and, you know, not have to fight for a parking spot. The car looked really good. 10th anniversary with the red seats and a little bit of my engine bay that you don't see a whole lot of. I don't seem to make a lot of videos about it, but it's the VMP 2.65 liter Gen 3 supercharger with the big elbow 5-inch intake. Then we've got my brother's 2.3 Whipple. Looks really good with the Ford GT powder coated blue valve covers, and Zach's GT. Some more cars were starting to show up. The sun was coming up a little bit more. Everything looking good.
Loud. That was loud.
I went for a nice ride with my friend, took him for a ride. He showed up at the car show, had to go run some errands, and then I went to breakfast. Then I went again and got some ice cream. So it was fun to take the Cobra around, parked next to a nice black Camaro V6. On this side of town, so I stopped to see the Granny GT for a second. Love the car. You'll see it later in the video some more. So I was going to go help my friend Zach work on the exhaust on his GT, and I walked out and I had a flat tire. How wonderful. Nail right in the tire here. Screw or something. So I decided to go ahead and just take the wheel off, and I actually broke 2 lug nuts getting it off. The impact gun just kind of wobbled at the end and it stripped it. So there's this nice place in town, and they offer free tire repair in a little booklet we have, like a coupon book thing, and it was really nice of them. They were very quick, and they did that. So I bought some new lug nut studs on the way, and I went over to Zach's house, and now I had the repaired tire in the back of the GT, and I came over here to work on this. So what we're going to do is drop the axle and snake in a stock exhaust in there so that we don't have to cut it. And his other exhaust was just giving him trouble, and he wanted to get something in there. So we dropped the struts and control arms and everything. This tiny little ratchet. Went to the parts store to get some things. Cute little dog in there. And so we took my GT to go to the parts store. So it's always nice to have a good running car to go get parts when you need them.
04.
Yeah, 04.
Not a 40th anniversary, but it's an 04.
Yeah, FRs. We had to go get exhaust hangers and stuff to finish up the job, but when we got back, we got it all installed and started it up, and you might have seen the YouTube short I made, but when this GT started up, it had been sitting in someone's side yard or something, and it blew out a bunch of junk and some pretzels and stuff, so who knows what rodents might have been living inside of it or something. But anyway, so pay attention to the startup and you'll see it here.
What? There's some leaves and stuff came out. Not bad. No leaks or anything.
Listen to the horn. He has a General Lee horn. We took the GTs and went to get something to eat. That was fun. So got to hang out a little, and then I went back to start working on my own car now and get these wheels back on, get the lug studs replaced on the GT. So I had put another bullet wheel I had on there in the meantime in case my wife had to take it somewhere. But yeah, this was kind of a hassle, and it took several hours. I had to disconnect the parking brake and beat out the old studs, and I hadn't done this for a long time. But anyway, got the brakes all taken care of, had to reinstall them and everything. And the other side had a broken lug nut too, but it was just getting too late to do it, so I went ahead and did this side, and I used my impact gun to drive the new studs through the back side of it and stuff. So yeah, this is beating out the old lug nuts and stuff. Definitely not something fun that you just want to do. It's something that just had to be done, and I learned my lesson. And now with the impact guns, I try to break them loose and then go real slow bringing them out, because for some reason it just wobbled and stripped these things pretty bad. So worked late into the night getting it all taken care of. There were 3 that I had to do on this side, and there's 1 on the other side. You'll see that later on. So nice, got the car running, went for a test drive, made sure the brakes were all operating right and everything. I didn't have to compress the cylinder or anything. I just slid the brake caliper off and back on, and so put the center cap in to finish things off. But yeah, on the other side, I just left the whole brake rotor and caliper together and just slid it aside. So we'll see that in the later video here. But my yellow GT was really starting to stumble on cold startups, driving around the neighborhood. It was really acting really weird. And so my brother had just replaced the front O2 sensors on his car to help alleviate that issue, and I thought, maybe that's the problem with mine, and sure enough, it fixed it. Now it runs fantastic. My friends shopped for a little bit, built up a huge appetite, went out to eat, and I just loved driving the GT around and having it out there in the parking lot. It looked fantastic. Car starts up, sounds good, and I drove it early the next morning. Back at my friend's shop again, working on the black Kenny Bell supercharged GT with the built engine. It's coming along. It's got a lot of things done to it. I'll probably make another update video about it. And again, more ice cream after a hard day's work. It seems like that's all I do. So here's my brother's Mach 1, looking beautiful. And we decided to go ahead and bring it over and park it next to my Mach 1 in the other garage. And speaking of Mach 1s, I took my Azure Blue Mach 1 to a church meeting, and it just looked really good sitting out there, just walking up to it. I'm like, man, this car is beautiful. It looks fantastic, and I just love having it. And then after church, we came home in the Tahoe, and there's this cat on the Bullet. Backing in, you might have seen my Sonic Blue GT parts car in there, and you know, I've been thinking about this car. It's kind of too bad it's wrecked so bad in the front and back. My friend sent me this Sonic Blue GT that was in the wrecking yard, and this one's been hit in the front real bad. And I've actually seen quite a few Sonic Blue GTs that are totaled, and it's really too bad because they're getting kind of hard to find, and I've seen a lot of wrecked ones lately. So took the silver GT, had to go run some errands, go drop off a package for my mother-in-law. Then I met up with my brother and followed him home in his GT. It's kind of fun. Shop, I put a cam in an LS truck.
That's the amount of chop I want right there.
Valve Roush showed up at the shop. I've talked to that guy a little bit, and he was telling me about what the power goals he wanted for the car, that he wanted to beat everybody in town with coyotes and young kids, and I told him you know, what I thought needed to be done, and if he doesn't want to rebuild the entire engine and spend a lot of money, he might as well just sell the car and buy a Coyote and stuff. But, you know, I told him all that at the car show, and then he still showed up at the shop asking them for their opinion, which was the same thing I kind of already told him. But anyway, this other GT showed up to get a tune on my friend's dyno, and it was very interesting because my friend said, hey, there's a black GT coming in for a tune. Do you know the guy? And I said, well, I'm not sure if I know the guy or the car. It's black. And I looked over the car, and as I started looking at it, I thought, wait a second, I think I might know what car this is in disguise. I pretty much know all the Mustangs in town, and this one's even an hour away in another smaller town, but I know most of the Mustangs in the general area. And as I looked at this GT, I started to walk around it, and I thought, this could be a car that I know. And as I started looking around, I saw that on the quarter panel, you could see that there's this dent underneath the side scoop there. And I said, does this have a red door on the inside? Is the car yellow with a red door? And sure enough, when I opened up the door on this side, it was yellow in the paint, on the jams and everything. And then I asked him if the door was red. He said, yes. I opened up and saw it was red. And I said, okay, I know what car this is. This was a car that was very special to me. It used to live across the street from me. And for several years, I'd look out and see the beautiful zinc yellow. This is what the car used to look like when it lived by me. And I just loved this car. And I would stare at it and say, man, I want to buy that car. And I end up having now the same car myself. But this car belonged to a young girl. And one time she left the parking brake off and left it out of gear, and it rolled and smashed the back into somebody, broke the tail light. And I thought I was going to get totaled at that point because it had the quarter panel damage and stuff like that, the broken light. And luckily they ended up fixing it, and then it got T-boned, and that's where I got the red door from. I have a whole story about it on the channel. But anyway, it was a car that's been wrecked a few times, salvage title, rebuilt, and I'm glad to see it still around. I was very happy to see it, actually. I was happy that the car survived all this time. I had seen it switch hands a few times, and I always kind of wondered what happened to it, and I was worried that it was going to get, you know, totaled or crushed, but it's still alive. This car has cams and a replacement engine and stuff, and it's straight pipes, so I warned the owner this is going to be deafeningly loud, and it sure was. But before we could do a real good dyno pull on it, my friend noticed that the back axle was bent, and this car's actually had a couple axles, he said. He keeps snapping axles on it. He says he does two-step launches and stuff with it, and the axle tubes have been welded, and it was just kind of not straight exactly, but he told me he pegged the needle and did 150 in it on the freeway, and I'm like, okay, well, just please be careful with the car. But anyway, we did a pull that was safe for it. Fun to watch the dyno pulls. At the same time, I was working on the Kenne GT, getting it up and running. You can hear it's going to need some idler pulleys and stuff. It's squeaking pretty bad. Took the yellow GT when I was done with that, and then the next day I took the red Cobra out for just a nice morning drive, went to the store and got some treats and stuff to relax for the weekend. Costco and found a couple Terminator models. There were actually 3 of them I ended up buying, and so that was fun because the Costco here never really has the 03, 04 Cobra models, but anyway, in this case there was one. So took the blue Mach 1 on a date with my wife, had to stop and put a couple gallons in and stuff, and you know, this isn't where I usually go for that. I usually keep the ethanol clear 91 octane with no ethanol fuel in it, but this was just on the way to dinner and stuff. But beautiful Mach 1, just love seeing it out, having a nice time enjoying the evening with her. And, you know, we both work really hard, and you know, it's nice to get out and take the Mach 1. We always call it our getaway car, so fun to take it and see it parked out here. It looks beautiful. We stopped by a car meet that they were having here at the other place, and it's just kind of fun to cruise around together. And you know, we don't do this a whole lot with having our kids and stuff, and we're always kind of doing things with them, and it's nice to go on a date and have fun and enjoy it. And the Mach 1 looked beautiful. It was doing fantastic. This is the Mustang we've had the longest, so we drove by the temple on the way home, and this is just somewhere we like to go together, and it's beautiful, and it was just a wonderful evening to spend time together and drive the Mach 1. I love the fall. It's one of my favorite seasons. It's so cool. Break the tires loose a little bit, enjoy the Mach 1. So I was looking through my yearbook. My wife and I are having our 20-year high school reunion coming up, and I was looking through the old yearbook to try to remember faces and remember who these people are that I haven't seen, for 20 years. And as I was looking through the yearbook, I saw this 94, 95 Mustang GT that was in an ad in the back of the book. And I remember seeing this GT. It was parked inside a home furniture store where they also did like car audio and stuff. And I remember seeing how nice that car was. And this was back in 2004. So this car would have been about 10 years old at the time I saw it, when it was newish. 10 years old, but still, that was 20 years ago. And it was cool to see this car in the showroom. It was beautiful. The paint was nice. It had like crazy stereo system and everything. And I don't know whatever happened to that car, but I remember seeing it in the showroom with my brother and talking about it. So I was surprised to find it in the back of the yearbook. Obviously, this furniture store was one of the sponsors for the school. And it's kind of a very popular small town business, and it was kind of fun to see that GT in the back of the yearbook. So that friend of mine who had the black GT on the dyno, I did talk to him a lot while he was there, and I realized he's the person who I've been talking a lot with on Instagram. Never met him in person, but we had been talking for a long time. And so he said, hey, can I come over and bring the GT and work on it a little bit? He wants to get it back on the dyno. It needed some things, had a bad misfire on cylinder 4. So he asked if he could bring it to my house. And, I had some extra fuel injectors and ignition coils and all sorts of stuff that we could swap over. We tried the idle air control. We did a whole bunch of stuff to it to try to get it to run smoother and get him back on the dyno. And so he brought it over, and we worked for a long time on it, but we're not sure because the tune had to be altered for it to run right, so it might be all in the tune, but we swapped some things out and did what we could. Took him and his friend for a ride in the red Terminator, and they said that made their day. They were really excited about it and very grateful to go for a ride in the Cobra, so that was fun to do that. And not long after he left, he called me and said, hey, I think I broke my transmission. I did a hard shift from 3rd to 4th on the freeway, and now I don't have any gears. I said, it's probably your input shaft to your transmission. Sure enough, that's what it was. So I wanted to wash the silver GT. I got it on the grass and started cleaning it up, got the tires shined and everything. And it was just in time for my wife to take it. And as I was doing the tire shine, I looked at the rear driver's side and I was like, it's either really sunk in the grass or it's low. And sure enough, that tire was going flat. And guess what? Another nail in the tire. So I got to go through the pleasure of getting the wheel off the car again, and this time, like I said, I left the brake and the rotor together, the caliper and everything on there. Busted out this broken stud that I had because I've been driving around with 4 on it anyway, so that was something I wanted to replace, and I was waiting for a good time to do it, and this was the good time. So I took the wheel to the same place I took the other one, and they were really nice to quickly repair it, and then I brought it back and I replaced the lug nut stud and put the brake back on and everything, got the car all back together, and now the only thing left to do is pop the center cap in. But I was like, well, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe, I shouldn't be driving around with a broken lug nut stud. So I got to the bottom of that, and maybe that was the time to do it. So it's all better now. Driving the yellow GT, it's time to get a new windshield. I'm so sick of this windshield. It's like, man, I'm very, very frugal, and I try to be good with my money. Windshield still works, still holds water and everything, but I had my wife come pick me up. I dropped the GT off and said, it's time for a new windshield. I didn't really want to spend the money. It's actually right next door to where the tire was replaced, and so I just walked over and said, hey, I'd like to get a new windshield. And he said, should we schedule it? And I said, yeah, because I just hate scheduling stuff like that, because then you got to go drop the car off, you got to come back and get it later, and a lot of times I'm like, forget it, I'll do it later. But I got this new panel for it and everything. But man, am I so happy now. It looks so good. This is something I've wanted for a long time. The longer you go without it, the more important it is to you. If I'd have done this immediately, I wouldn't have appreciated as much as I do now having a nice windshield in the car. And everybody can stop bugging me in the comments about it. Really makes a huge difference. The car seems so nice now. It seemed junky without it. And even when it's parked here, I see the nice windshield looking through it, even when I'm not looking directly at the windshield. So I'm so happy that I have that. And my silver GT was the same thing. Drove it with a broken windshield for a while and finally got it replaced, and I'm more grateful for it now, and it makes the car seem so much nicer. So my brother came over to get his transmission jack, which was really nice that he's let me borrow it so many times for other people when we've worked on their cars here. And I just sat on the tailgate with it as we took it back. But I was going to work on the yellow GT some more and get the lines run for the windshield washer mechanism, because that whole panel area was kind of messed up from the accident from the new panels. And so I ran some drip line actually in the wheel well, and I got it to spray, and so that was pretty cool. So I'm glad I got that all working, because I didn't want to just put it all back together and then not have that work. And so I got that all run nicely and fixed. And this is the old one, man. This thing was just so trashed. I just had it in there for now, but I did have to modify a little bit more to make it fit right. And this one came out of the wrecking yard, but it's got a couple cracks in it, but that's okay. So over by my friend's shop, I saw this 96 Mustang GT, and I saw it down kind of in this little dugout dirt area, parked back here with some equipment and stuff. And so I walked around. It has my favorite, what I call the Granny GT wheels. They're all solid color for 96. The paint's flaking off, which is normal for white. Interior's pretty trashed. Pretty sad to see that they left it with the windows down and stuff like this. You can see like ignition wires and stuff all on the ground, and it's missing a seat, so fans there, so this car's probably got some engine trouble, which is really too bad. But it's it's in pretty rough shape, and the paint's flaking off, like I said. I believe it's like a single stage and then clear, so the white tends to flake off of these Mustangs pretty easily and stuff like that. But 96 GT has the black valence between the exhaust pipes. I really like that. It's a really cool car. It's sad to see it like this, and I mean, even if somebody gave you this car, you'd have to spend several $1,000s to get it up right and running and cleaned up and stuff. So that's probably why it's sitting, because most people don't want to put the money into it. But it's still a cool car. It's a GT. I've spent a lot of time in a GT automatic like this that was silver, and that my friend had at a dealership he worked at. We got to take it out all the time, so kind of special car to me, and I like these cars, and you know, it's just something I wanted to come look at. And looks like the driver's seat's sitting in the front seat. Oh man, it's filthy. It's really too bad. It has the Mach audio system. I bet this car would be nice if you cleaned it up, and you know, it looks pretty straight. It doesn't look like it's had accidents or anything, but just something I wanted to come see. It's kind of like a barn find. This is where you start finding Mustangs like this sitting in fields and stuff, and I did look to confirm it was a 96, and sure enough it was built in 96. So here we go, 6 of 96. So man, pretty cool car. The keys were still in it and everything, so that's just too bad. I walked back over to the shop and saw my yellow GT sitting there. And I'm like, man, I love this car. I mean, I'm very happy with mine. I saved it. It was just a shell. It was wrecked and parted out when I got it, so at least I saved it. So I went on a parts store run, actually. I had to go get some things for the Kenne GT, some idler pulleys and things. Nice Corvette there at the auto parts store. It's always fun to go to the parts store. For some reason, car guys just like to do it. Sometimes it's stressful because you're working on something. My friend's Trans Am's in the shop. We're actually stealing the transmission out of it for a Yukon, which is too bad. I really like the car, but he said that he got it from somebody he had sold it to previously, and that he doesn't have a title for it. And I told him, try to acquire a title, because it's such a sweet car, and it's rust free. It's a desert car. I've seen these on other YouTube videos where you can literally punch your finger through the bottom of it because they're rusted out. And you know, this one's so straight. It's, you know, needs new interior and new paint, but man, it's a cool car. And he said the LS1 in it runs fine, so I felt really bad that it was, you know, getting robbed of its transmission and everything. And he might get it back together. He says he has a built stroker engine that he might put in it and stuff, so I'm encouraging him to do that because I really like the car. And then it was my birthday. I went for a walk and I saw the Granny GT again. We're going to see it again here coming up soon. Working on the black GT. I replaced the idler pulleys. They're like the Kenne ones, which were kind of unusual, but got it running. I also replaced a plug that was broken on the side of the master cylinder. They're very common to break when people pull engines out of these cars. It was already broken when it came into the shop. I had never replaced one of these before, but it was actually pretty simple. So here it is right here. That's the harness plug, and I slid a new piece in there and fixed it. So I'll make a video about that because it was, you know, good. So here's the Trans Am and the GT together. These are two iconic cars for their era. I love both of these cars, so you know, I hope that red one gets fixed soon. And then I saw this 97 Cobra, white, beautiful car, and I've seen it around before, so I had to take a video. Then went over to my brother's. He had picked up that transmission jack, like I said, and so now he's using it for himself. We pulled the transmission down, well, he did, and then I helped him put it back in after he got a new throwout bearing on it. So you might have seen that on his channel. Drove my GT there. It's kind of cool. Then I raced home to the block party that my wife and all the neighborhood wives were putting together. And so it was fun to have everyone at the house. And the next morning, my brother and I went for a ride in his Cobra. And we do this often. We'll just call each other and say, hey, are you up? Let's go for a ride. And we go drive around and talk and stuff. And we got to scheming and said, you know what? Let's go see if the Granny GT's for sale to buy. he dropped me off, and then he picked me up in his new Sequoia, and we got all the kids to go to a car show and said, let's go stop by and look at the Granny GT and see if the owner will talk to us about it. She's in a rest home. She's in her 90s, but the son has the car. We've noticed it's been sitting here for a while. It's been kind of in the same spot, had the seat pushed forward, and like it doesn't look like it's moved. There's some spider webs on it, so we thought, you know, maybe it's time to talk about buying this car from them if they're interested in selling it. So I looked in, the window was cracked, but interior looks really nice. It's always been nice. It always had a dash pad on it and stuff. I could see some spider webs starting to grow in the corner there, but very clean car. And, you know, it's still at a stage where it could be saved and it would still be really nice. It has 140,000 miles on it, but this thing is all original and all clean. I mean, look underneath here, no rust at all. It's a desert car. We know it's been in our town for the last 20 years, and so we just thought it'd be nice to get a hold of this car. So we knocked on the door, and he didn't show up, and so we went to the car show, and I got his phone number, and you know, we texted him, and we were waiting to hear back. So we enjoyed the car show while we were waiting, and here's a beautiful 69 Mach 1.
So you know there's big hole mags and small hole mags?
Magnum wheels, and there's
there's a
big hole
difference.
and small hole
I know on the
magnums and stuff I've been
429
learning about
It was
recently.
longer, yeah.
So
it was stuck out longer.
pretty cool to see this one here.
this is a non-shaker
Like I said, I heard
Mach 1.
Mach 1s did not come with louvers or spoiler or magnums. Those were all either added on later or even possibly added at the dealership, but
I do.
this is a non-shaker car, so pretty cool to see that as well, because everyone thinks a Mach 1 has to have a shaker, but they don't. You know, this one had it might have had a 5-speed. I think the shift ball had a 5 on it. Might have had a newer transmission, but beautiful car. There's a 98 Cobra, chrome yellow, which is funny. It's the same color as the Granny GT that we were just looking at this morning. Has a V2 supercharger from Vortec on it, and very, very nice car. I mean, beautiful low mileage example. It's convertible, and it lives in a neighboring city, which was what I kind of suspected because it had Nevada plates, 40-something thousand miles on it. So very, very nice for the year. It's really cool to see it here.
It is a Cobra, 98
It's
Cobra.
in very good shape. You can tell this car has been loved and babied and garaged its whole life. It says "Sun's Out," kind of a cool license plate there. And yeah, beautiful chrome yellow 98 Cobra. So just like today's kind of an interesting day for SN95s because we're talking about buying the Granny GT, waiting for the guy to call us back. I did get his phone number, texted him, and still waiting to hear back from him while we were at the show and stuff. But really cool to see this Cobra here. It did have
See
like
that?
a
It's in the
newer
wrong
plaque
spot,
on the valve cover.
and
Those
they didn't
were on
have
the
the
01
metal
Cobras
tags back then. That's from
later,
01.
Yeah.
they had added that, but very nice looking car. So fun to see that. I didn't record everything at the show, but there's a beautiful AAR CUDA. I really like those a lot. And this beautiful 69 Camaro, red with white stripes, and it had an LS3 in it that looks really good. So saw this SN95 GT as we were leaving the show, parked in a driveway. So kind of cool to see. And anyway, the guy had texted us and said he's not really ready to sell the GT yet. And so that was fine. So I drove my GT, went to a church meeting, and the next day my wife had a dress she was selling on Marketplace, and somebody wanted to buy it, asked if I'd bring it to him. So I said, okay, I'll take the Cobra for a drive with my boys. pointed out the street name was kind of funny. This is the neighborhood I grew up in. This is Player Circle, where all the players are, you know. So anyway, it was a good excuse to get the Cobra out and go for a nice evening drive, and we went to a park here. This is the park where I grew up and stuff, and I like coming here in the fall, so it's the perfect time of year to start doing this. Supercharged, a little warm. I thought might as well open the hood, let the heat out. Kids went to go play on the park, you know, stuff, playground, and so I just kind of hung out and looked over the car and enjoyed seeing it out in a different way instead of just in the garage. Just kind of opened it up, let it cool off, and walked around it and enjoyed seeing it. And just, I don't drive it as much as the other cars, so it's fun to have some time with it and go drive it around and get out and just look it over and enjoy it. It's beautiful. It's my favorite car. I mean, I have so many favorite Mustangs, but this is one of the top ones for me. And so just really cool to get out and enjoy it. I can't say it's my favorite car, I guess. My orange Cobra or the Bullet, they're all special to me. The Mach 1s, their GTs are good for what they are too. So anyway, beautiful car, great time to take it out. And then, you know, we let the sun start to set and we went and got some ice cream and headed home. And I thought I'd get some 91 Clear to put in the car at the gas station, looking fantastic. And this car looks beautiful, and even under gas station lights it looks good because I've recently done a light paint correction on it, so not many swirls on there. Paint's looking fantastic. And on the way home we stopped to see this Halloween display that we like, and they did set it up finally. It has like a lot of fun stuff going on here, so this is just something that we like to do with the family and come and check out. And so it's fun that people set things up, and there's always a little group of people walking by who stop and see it and hang out. It brings the neighborhood together, so that was a lot of fun. We like, these pumpkins are kind of funny to watch. The update for now, kind of a longer one. I didn't expect it to be this long, but things go on, and you know, driving the cars all the time. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.